Westworld fans, we have made it. We have arrived at episode 8 of season 4, the season finale. And what a finale it was. I've been speculating all season that we were going to get like an hour 15, hour and 30 minutes. Didn't get that. We did get a full hour, but we got everything apparently wrapped up. So let's get right into it. So much to discuss with our remaining characters that were alive, what happened with them. And I also want to touch on if there is a season 5, where it could potentially go. So let's start with the beginning of the episode. Pandemonium is now in the streets. Murder is on everybody's mind. The humans are enacting their revenge, so to speak. We find out from some of the hosts that are on the run. There's two in particular. One is a bloodthirsty host that's kind of happy with the mayhem that's going on. And then we have another host that is just completely scared out of her mind and, scared of her own shadow, so to speak. We find out that there's millions of human beings that are in this bloodthirsty rage. So that gives us an indication that this is worldwide, so to speak. Before we mentioned that there were whole cities like this that were under Charlotte's control. So this is pretty much an inkling that the entire world, whoever was under the spell and not an outlier, is basically going crazy and they're killing all the hosts. And because there's millions of them, they're at the advantage. So we get an opening scene, and those two hosts are brutally killed. One takes an axe to the head. The other host is shot by a sniper. And the key thing to keep in mind is that when all this mayhem is going on, you really can't tell who is who. I mean, everybody looks pretty much exactly the same. They're all killing each other. They're all covered in blood. The remaining person that's alive on the street is a sniper. I'm going to assume he was a human being, but you really can't know for sure. Only reason I'm assuming he's human is because he's a little bit more strategic with his mayhem, being that he took a sniper's nest and was picking everybody off. Once everybody's killed, he thinks he's in the clear. He comes down. He's looking for some keys to get out of the city. He gets close, picks up the keys, and then he takes a shot to the chest from none other than our good chaos agent, William, the Man in Black. He tells him, what does he call him? He says, calls him a camper, almost he has like disdain in his voice. So I think he was kind of upset about his strategy. He feels like it was kind of cheap in this whole survival of the fittest world, that he shouldn't have taken that type of approach in order to survive. So he says, you know the rules, winner takes all, and shoots him in the head and gets in the car. And we're presuming he's off to create more mayhem throughout the world. On the flip side, we see a big scene of where we left Charlotte and Maeve dead in the fountain, courtesy of William. However, William did make a miscalculations. Those minions that I call the muscle suits, they're still under Charlotte's control. So their immediate reaction to seeing their leader fallen is to resurrect her. So they pick her up out of the fountain, get her back inside, and because her pearl wasn't completely destroyed, they're able to bring her back to life. And as soon as she comes back, she says, rebuild me stronger. And so they give her, a new outfit. Only thing she's missing is like the Punisher logo. They got her all in black. I believe we saw that outfit one time before in season 3 when she was breaking out of the Westworld facility. So she's ready for war. We're presuming she's a little bit stronger now that she has some type of armor. And she does say one thing that we've been talking, or I've been talking about the entire season, is that she says, leave my scars. I want to remember my past. And that is something that we've seen throughout the season with everybody from Caleb on the human side and Frankie to William and Dolores. Everybody is running on their own loop, so to speak. And the loops are basically tied to the trauma from their past in some form or fashion. And so even now, she's still willing to let that go. It defines her at this point. And that, in my opinion, is the reason why we see the world the way it is, because she could not let go of that trauma, that human corruption that was in her spirit. And because she wasn't willing to do that, it's festered and it's corrupted the world that we see now. And it's exploded in her face. And now it's complete chaos, courtesy of Charlotte, so to speak. She later on tries to blame William when she's taken to the headquarters where she has the system. Everything is destroyed. Bernard's there dead. everything is in chaos. And she says, look at what he's done. She's blaming William. And it's like, no, Charlotte, this is really your fault. You've created all this. And one of the minions brings her Bernard's message. We were wondering who he was leaving that for. He was leaving it for Charlotte. And we only get a bit of it at the beginning of the episode. He's telling her this isn't the world that you wanted, but this is the world that you created. And he's absolutely right. She was going for transcendence, that everybody was going to evolve beyond their base state. And there was none of that. It was complete chaos because this is what happens when you decide to play God and believe you know what's best for, in her world, in her mind, the host and the human beings. So now because of her miscalculation, she's put everybody on the brink of annihilation. Not just the human beings who she has disdain for, really the hosts, because they're outnumbered. And here's the key thing, as evolved as the hosts are supposed to be, they're supposed to be better than us. They're not supposed to have any weaknesses. In this type of game of survival of the fittest, they're at a disadvantage. This is where us as human beings, we're right in our element because we know we're bloodthirsty. We know we're capable of so much barbarism and lack of humanity when it comes to dealing with each other. There's no way that the host can deal with that. So they are, really up for extension at this point, and it's all because of Charlotte. So while all that is going on, we find out that we knew beforehand that Dolores wasn't real in this world, but we were speculating where she was at. Is she in the Sublime some type of way? But the reality is she is the program. She is the back end program of this entire system. So she was running everything that we were seeing as far as all the narratives and everything that were going out to the hosts and were in their minds and in the human minds, it was coming directly from Dolores. So that begs the other question. If she's not real in this world, what was she doing all this time? We've seen her with a roommate, we've seen her talking with Teddy. What is this? So what we figure out is that in this simulation, in this program that Dolores was running, in a way just to keep her sanity and to keep everything running, she created these fictional narratives also for herself. So that means Teddy, that means Maya, that means the earlier guy that came to her saying that you did this to me and killed himself. These are all figments of her mind. These are all creations that she used to kind of keep herself together, kind of to keep the game going and to keep her consciousness intact. And this is very interesting because you can you can look at this the same way as like, where do stories come from? Even as creators, if you write novels, if you make music, there's always that question of where does that spark comes from that makes you create what you create? It just seems to come out of nowhere and you make it tangible in this world. You're pulling from everything that you've ever gone through in your life and putting it into an allegorical sense, whether that's music, writing, whatever. And that feels like what Dolores has been doing with this particular program. But now all that is smashed because Charlotte destroying the the base program, it puts her in darkness. So now everything that she's created is completely destroyed. So now she's by herself again. So when she's by herself, what happens? She gets afraid and she relies on her roommate. Her roommate is kind of like her comfort friend. And Dolores is like, well, what do I do at this point? I just don't, everything is chaos. People are killing each other. And Maya tells her one thing. It's like, people, she gives an allegorical example as we've been talking about. She says, people think they know what a tree is, but you're really only seeing the surface. You're seeing the outward part of the tree, but the roots and everything, that's what makes the tree. That's what gives the tree its foundation. That's what keeps it alive and functioning. And below the surface of everything, we're all connected in some form or fashion. Nature, life, all that is interconnected, and there's beauty in that. Even if you're not like a religious person, a lot of religious people, they look at God and that's where the beauty comes from. God created everything. But even if you look at someone like Albert Einstein, they asked him about that one time, and he wasn't a religious person, but he mentioned, I love just the beauty of the order of the way the world is, the laws of physics and everything, all that comes together to make the world function as it is. And there's beauty in that, just observing that and knowing how that works. And Maya is telling Dolores is that's what you need to focus on. However, you can find beauty in this world, whether it's through science, whether it's just how the human beings at their best, how they interact with each other, how hosts, how we interact with each other, the love that you remember from Teddy, that's what you need to focus on. I know she, as Maya said, I focus on the beauty in this world, not the ugly. That is your choice. And that's the choice that we make every day. I feel like that's a lot, that's big social commentary that they're putting in this episode, that there's so much negativity that we see every single day. The minute you open up your phone on Twitter, TikTok, wherever it is, you're getting bombarded with just problems, relationship issues, politics, arguing, gender wars, whatever you have it, there's always some level of conflict that you're going to run into just by opening your phone or just by stepping out the door and just in just the world, whether it's at your job, your family, whatever. But there's also so much beauty that you can overlook if you're just focusing on that negative. And essentially what Maya is telling her is that you can recreate the world. You recreated this world initially, and now that it's been shut down, you can recreate it again by focusing on the beauty in the world. But she's going to need a little help to do that because keep in mind, she's in complete kind of, well, she's not in complete darkness now. She's in the walled garden, which is kind of the host, their inner mind. We've heard that before in previous seasons. So that's where she's at now. So she's not in complete darkness, so to speak. She's kind of in her inner mind. But in order to have a new world of beauty, she's going to need some help from Charlotte. So, one thing that we got earlier is that when Charlotte was looking at that message from Bernard, we got the first half of it at the beginning or the first half of the episode where he's mentioning that you have to fix this world that you created. In the second half of the episode with Charlotte's storyline, we get the rest of Bernard's message to her, which was essentially that you have to give one last test to Dolores to, not save this world because this world is kind of doomed based on what you did, but to give hope to the world, next world that's going to come. And you have to give her the option to decide that. So this is a new Charlotte now. This is a Charlotte that's not playing God anymore. She's been humbled. She's seen her failure firsthand in front of her, the world being destroyed. So now she knows that she has to kind of make amends, kind of make penance the best way that she can. So her first order of business is she has to stop William from destroying the Sublime. That's where he's headed to. He's already created extinction level event in this world. He wants to do the same in the Sublime. He wants to destroy that beauty and bring it to its knees. So Charlotte is at first she's able to program some of the hosts on his path to kind of slow him down a little bit. She has him shoot at him. And it's kind of funny while that's going on, he's listening to Ring of Fire from Johnny Cash. Pretty much sums up William, right? He's creating hell on earth. So the hosts kind of slow him down a little bit. They shoot up his car. He crashes. He kills both the hosts. And he's able to put on the glasses that one of the hosts was wearing, which allows him to see and interact with Charlotte. So they have a brief conversation, and he's talking about how you can't stop me. You're looking a little bit better now, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And she's looking at him like, what is your end game? Are you really trying to destroy everything? And he's like, I basically took your game and I cranked it up to expert level. This is still a game. I'm still playing a game, but I'm playing the game at a higher level. And she's like, do you really want to see all of your hosts, all of your kind die? But here's the key thing with William. He doesn't see anyone else as part of quote unquote his kind. And when he says survival of the fittest, that is exactly what he means. He means that if you are not powerful enough to survive, then you don't deserve to be here. And he tells her that we are all fruit from a rotted tree. And that rotted tree would be humanity, because as we heard in the last episode, the hosts are a reflection of us. So he wants to spread that type of war to the Sublime and basically tells her that you can't stop me. So we get a final face off at the Sublime between Charlotte and William. And I speculated before, that clip that I showed, Bernard, he was placing something behind or beside a wall that was hidden. I thought maybe it was a bomb or something that was going to blow up a dam. We find out that it was actually a gun that he placed back there. And some people called that earlier. Some people told me that on Twitter. So kudos to you for catching that. I wasn't sure what the item was. And essentially, the reason why he placed it back there is because he knew the firefight between William and Charlotte was going to lead to that area. So they're going back and forth. One thing that kind of took me out of the episode a little bit is that initially when they had that face off, William tries to stab Charlotte and he's not able to because she has that armor on. And I'm like, well, you got armor enough to stop knives, but you didn't get something that could stop bullets. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. But I know for dramatic purposes, you couldn't really have her bulletproof. So they're playing a cat and mouse game. They're shooting at each other. Eventually, Charlotte runs out of bullets. And at that point, she has to trust in Bernard that the gun is going to be behind there and that she's going to be able to not miss to take William by surprise. So initially, when she lures him to that area, she gets shot up a little bit by William. She doesn't take a headshot. And while she's keeping him talking, because we know William, his downfall is his hubris, she's able to retrieve that gun that Bernard put back there and actually kill William. And the good thing about that is she's able to do it permanently. You know, once she gives him that headshot, she literally opens up his head and she crushes the pearl inside to completely eradicate any memory of William in this world. So now the human version of William is dead from the previous episode, and now the quote unquote evolved version of William, as the host called himself, is now gone as well. So he has proven that he is not one of the strongest, you know, to survive that game of survival of the fittest. So he is out of here. I wanted to bring your attention very briefly for those who watch HBO and were fans of Game of Thrones. You'll keep in mind that just like Daenerys, she only had one episode of complete control, not even a full episode, kind of a half episode in the last season of Game of Thrones. Same thing with William here. He really only had or I guess a half an episode of just being in power and creating chaos before he was taken out. So that's kind of a downside because it was such a great character, such a great foil. So for him only to have that little bit of power was kind of, you know, kind of sucked a little bit. But I guess there's only so much of William you can have when the world, you know, when the world is on fire. However, while I bring that up, I do want to rewind a little bit back to Charlotte, her discussion that she had with Clementine. I was wondering where she was going to show up. I assumed that she was going to be with William, and you know they were going to be in tandem, destroying everything. But no, she's been off on her own. So when Charlotte, you know, repaired herself and went down to kind of take a look at the human William to confirm he was dead, Clementine comes out of nowhere and they have a discussion. And Clementine basically reminds Charlotte of her failure. She tells her that, you know, you thought that you can control him, make him your pet. You weren't able to do that. And you also claimed that you were going to give us our independence. Is that true? And Charlotte, she's almost, I won't say she looked afraid, but she was very wary of Clementine and what her intentions are. And that's something I always loved about that character, just how mesmerizing her eyes are and just how cool her demeanor is. You can never really know what she's thinking or what she's going to do next. And, you know, Clementine tells Charlotte that her entire existence has been essentially a helpmate. You know, she's never had complete autonomy over herself to do whatever she wants. And she asks her, do I have that now? And Charlotte says, yes, even though I would love to get your help in taking down William. But Clementine has no desire to do that. She wants to actually seek out the outliers and live in the real world. She doesn't want to live with the outliers. She wants to exterminate them and then have the remaining hosts replace them and live outside of the cities and everything as the new outliers because that's basically the role reversal now. You know, being that the humans that populate the cities are in complete, you know, complete maniacs now, the hosts have to find their own refuge, and Clementine believes she can do that, at least for herself. We don't really get the indication she wants to do that as a group. So Charlotte gives her that blessing and she leaves. So the reason why I bring that up is because I've been wanting more Clementine the entire season. So I think there's a potential storyline for her in season 5, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. I want to finish up Charlotte's storyline. So after taking out William, Charlotte uploads Dolores into the Sublime. So that's something that was very key. She does that and she closes the Sublime in the real world, essentially protecting the world to be, or the world that is, the Sublime, from any more human interaction and any human corruption. So at that point, what's left for Charlotte? She knows she's a marked woman in this world. She knows all the hosts are pretty much damned that are remaining, and she knows she's too corrupted by, her human DNA and her reliance on the scars and trauma from her past. She knows she can't go into the Sublime too. She would just end up corrupting it in some form or fashion. So she accepts that she doesn't belong in any of these worlds anymore and that she needs to remove herself. So surprisingly, what she does is it's a beautiful scene. She sits there, she's stripped down to her android parts, except for her top part, which is her face, and there's peace. There's no anger, there's no sadness. It's just accepting that I tried my best. I did what I thought was right and it didn't work. And at the very least, I was able to rectify my mistakes. And at this point, I'm ready to go. So she opens up her face, takes out her pearl, puts it in her hand, and crushes it. So now Charlotte is completely gone from this world, just like William. So the body count is just racking up as far as our staple characters. Bernard and Maeve are already gone. William is gone now. And now Charlotte is gone. So now let's flip to Dolores. So Dolores back, now that she's up in the Sublime, the world opens up again. And, now she realizes that she's in the new area now. But here's something we learned about the Sublime. I was kind of looking at, we call it robot heaven. So I was expecting her to be able to like find Teddy immediately. You know how we think, when you die and go to heaven, the gates open and all of your loved ones are right there, waiting for you, just like a surprise party, right? But in the Sublime, like that Supreme Being had mentioned to Bernard, everybody's off exploring their own worlds. So this place is like infinite. So she doesn't know where Teddy's at. She just knows he's out there somewhere in the Sublime. And the Teddy that she was talking to, that was one of her, quote unquote, imaginary friends that she was holding on to because that is the purest or only form of love that she's experienced. And she's used that to, stay sane in this program world that she created. But now that she's up in the Sublime, now we find out what that final test was. So now she's in the quote unquote perfect world, and she is the only remnant of the world that previously existed. And she knows in her mind that eventually, as the years pass, humans may stay alive for a couple more decades or so, but eventually they're going to go extinct in this world. Just the way humanity is, eventually it's going to consume itself and the resources, and they're going to disappear. And I'm going to have the only final memory of humanity. So, what am I going to do with that in this world? Because Bernard has been talking about the one way to save everyone or save humanity and the host would be taking what's good from the current world and bringing that into the world to come or the sublime. So, how is that going to be done? She's speculating on how to do that. And she says there's a way, but it's going to be a dangerous game. And what is that way? Essentially, she's going to be doing what Bernard did. She's going to be up in there replaying all the scenarios and doing one final loop of the Westworld saga. So what we see at the end of Dolores's journey and essentially the end of the episode is she is replaying the opening scene from Westworld. If you go back to season one and episode one, that train coming in, that is how the whole series started. So she's going to replay everything in her mind and see if there's going to be a way or a scenario where human beings don't destroy everything and end up fighting the host, and that we're somehow able to live in harmony. She mentioned something about, if you go back to the first episode and look at the opening scene, Dolores says something along the lines of the newcomers are here looking for the same thing we all are, a place to be free. So what Dolores is hoping is that when she replays everything and goes through this entire saga again, that somehow there can be changes to where humanity learns to coexist with the host. And maybe if she can figure out a way, just like Bernard did, maybe somehow she can come back out of the Sublime and share that with any humans if anyone is remaining. Or she'll just simply keep that memory of the best of humanity in the Sublime. So that is the end of her journey. She is off in her own world, just like everyone else is doing, just like that Supreme Being told Bernard before, everyone off is exploring their own worlds. That is Dolores's mission, so to speak. Her final game is exploring a way to make Westworld work for the better of hosts and the better of humanity. So that is, a good conclusion for Dolores. If there is a season five and we don't see her again, I would be content with that because, her replaying everything, we really need to see that. And I think she's gotten good closure with Teddy, even though she's still searching for him. She still knows that he's out there and she's going to find him eventually. Until she does, she still has that burning love that she remembers that will drive her. So happy ending for Dolores. Didn't get shot in the head like everybody else or have to crush her pearl. So that is success for her. So let's flip over to the human side. That would be Frankie, Caleb, and we'll say Stubbs as human adjacent. So they're trying to get out of the city. Everything is chaos now. Frankie is shot, but it doesn't appear, life-threatening. It's basically just hampering her mobility. She has to take a rest for a minute. And then Stubbs, he wants to have a word with Caleb because he sees as a host, he can tell her his body is deteriorating and that he might not make it to the rendezvous point where they're going to get out of there with Frankie and her girl and get back to the remaining outliers. And Caleb is like, I can go as far to get her out of here. That's all I need to do. I can hold up as long as I need to do that. Just trust me. So they hold up in the hideout that they think is away from everybody and all the mayhem. But unfortunately, they leave a door open and the human comes inside there. He comes inside. Bernard's able to catch him before he attacks anyone. And Stubbs makes his fatal mistake. As we know, Bernard told him earlier on that you're not going to survive. His mistake is trying to reason with the human being. He says, you don't want to do this. You got to fight that programming that's inside you. You got to fight the flies. And the human tells him, if you don't kill me, someone else will, and someone else is going to kill you. And then right on cue, who comes in? But my girl Clementine. I thought that she was going to be getting out of the city, but I guess until she does that, she wants to enact a little bit of mayhem of her own. She kills the human. She brutally shoots down Stubbs and then rams his eye through one of the beams basically out there and kills him immediately. So we get this final ugly shot of Stubbs with a beam hanging out of his eye socket, laying there dead. Uh, Hurt to see that because we all like Stubbs, but we kind of knew it was coming in some form or fashion. But I was like, damn, Clementine, could you take him out in a more less brutal way? So anyway, we find out that the reason why she's there is that she's been tracking Caleb because she knows if she stays close to Caleb, she'll be able to get to the outliers. So at that point, she goes in there and she confronts Frankie. And this is something that I've been waiting for. Clementine front and center stage, showing full personality, and she is great. Her sarcasm and dry humor is like up on 1,000. She is really taunting Frankie, asking her, how many bullets do you have in your gun? You're going to tell me where the outliers are before I kill you, very matter of factly. And her look is just perfect for this type of role. So what I am campaigning for, if there is a season five, we need Clementine in the head villain role. I mean, we've had Charlotte, we've had William. It's Clementine's, time now. She would be great in that role. She is just so cold and calculating. Even though Charlotte and Tessa Thompson did a really good job of kind of showing that colder, tyrannical side of leadership, I think Clementine would do that just 10 times better. Just how she did this scene and everything was just like perfect. I was loving it. So we get a showdown between Clementine and Caleb. They get into a fight and a struggle. Clementine, of course, is stronger now because Caleb is deteriorating. She gets him down on the floor and she's ready to snap his neck. But like William, she has that hubris and she's playing around, taunting him. And she doesn't realize that Frankie was actually deceiving her. Frankie was acting like she didn't have any bullets in her gun. She had one left. And then once Clementine gave that opening, Frankie shoots her in the head. So we only got like what 5 minutes of Clementine in all her glory just showing out. But if there's a season five, she needs to be the main villain. I'm sticking by my guns on that. Let me know what you guys think about that. I think she's amazing. So, and the actress is amazing as well. So more Clementine in the lead role for season five. That's my campaign. So now that Clementine is out of the picture, that is the last hurdle that enables Caleb and Frankie to get to the rendezvous point and get out of there. One thing I did forget to mention before Clementine came in there and started wreaking havoc, we did get a tender moment with Caleb and Frankie. And this is the first time that Frankie actually tells Caleb what happened to her mother and Caleb's wife. And it seems like, Caleb didn't want to know, but he tells her that even, when she was succumbing and deteriorating from cancer, she still fought to get as many outliers out of the city as she could. And that's why we have a fighting chance now. To her last breath, she was making sure she was going back and forth, kind of like a Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad type of thing, getting as many people out as she could so they could have a fighting chance. And Caleb just mentions to her, this just like, you had that same fight that you had that your mother has, and I see it. And one key thing, going back to the title, I forgot to mention the title, is Que Sera, Sera, which is a song by Doris Day, Spanish meaning whatever will be, is the saying. And it's interesting because that is also the theme song of the FX show From, which stars Harold Perrineau, who I interviewed. You can look back on my page, I did an interview with him at the end of that season. But he is, of course, the father of Frankie, the real life father of Frankie, on this show. So the fact that they use that song is like very interesting to me. A little bit of crossover. So for those who watch both shows, but they have that tender moment, and she's still thinking that Caleb is going to leave with her. And he tells her that no, once they get to the dock, this is as far as I go. I'm deteriorating. And she's like, no, we'll figure out a way. You have more fight than you realize. And he just tells her, it's like, you just have to, your real father died, decades ago. I have some remnants of him in me, but it's time for you to, let us go. I can't risk going out there with you and, corrupting or bringing more hosts to your location. I've gotten you where I need to go, and I've gotten the greatest gift I could get through all my iterations, my 279 versions of me. I got to see what a lot of parents don't get to see, which is their children fully grown, fully healthy and happy and living great lives, or realizing all of their potential as Frankie did. Frankie has the best of both parents, and she is now the leader of the Outliers, and in a sense, a leader of the future of humanity. If there is going to be any future, it's going to be her. So how proud of could you be as a parent to realize you've raised that person, that link to the future of humanity? So they have a tearful goodbye, and Frankie leaves. And this is another storyline that we may see if there's a season five. I know Dolores mentioned that eventually humanity is going to be wiped out, and she says they may survive a few years, but she doesn't know everything. And and Bernard said a couple episodes ago when he was talking with Frankie, he never quite knows what she's going to do. So who knows what her potential can be? She can recreate humanity from the ground up in this outlier community. As long as they're away from the host and away from the crazy humans, there's the sky's the limit on what they can do. And there's your storyline right there. Kind of a quasi Walking Dead, keeping, she would have to worry about the crazy humans and any remaining hosts coming for them. So that's a perfect storyline right there for the human side with Frankie and her spouse and the remaining outliers. Because now that Jay is gone, we still don't know how many outliers are really remaining, and then how many outlier communities do we have around the world. So that is the end of Frankie's storyline. She made it out with her spouse, and she got to say her final goodbye to her father, which is the one kind of lingering trauma that she was holding on to about what happened to her father. And that is the closure that we have also for Caleb's storyline. We didn't get any Maeve. I was a little bit sad about that, but I realized that her character kind of served the purpose of everything she intended to do in the last episode, but she was so fantastic. It felt a little hollow not getting any Maeve lines or anything from her in the final episode and just having her laying out there in the fountain like that. So I don't know if, maybe in the season five, she can, of course, be resurrected. Bernard was able to take her and put her in another body and everything. So there's still a possibility that she can come back in some form or fashion if needed. But, the reason why she was back is to finish what she started, so to speak. And I think she did that by giving humanity its best chance for survival going forward. So that is the full episode. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. We talked about Stubbs, Charlotte, William. We've gotten closure with Dolores now uploaded into the Sublime, and the Sublime closed from the outside world so they can exist in peace and run as many loops and explore as many worlds as they need to try and come up with and that goes back to, there's been a lot of Far East mysticism and philosophy in the season. One of the earlier, I think it was episode 4 or 5, that was actually named after a Daoism text that I talked about, which I believe is Zhuangzi, is the name that is how you pronounce it. And then we see in this episode, I feel like a very big recurring theme is reincarnation. This whole idea of Dolores running through the loop one more time to try and achieve perfection or nirvana, that perfect balance in this world between the host and the human beings. That is, all Far East, mysticism and philosophy right there. So I feel like we got a lot of that in this season, and it was great. I don't really have any complaints. I feel like you could argue this is the best season since season 1 or 2. I know two was a little bit too convoluted for a lot of people. I feel like they removed a lot of that with the season. It was very straightforward, and because it was only 8 episodes, everything had to be very compact and put together. So, if we do get to season five, a lot of our faves are going to be gone. There's not going to be any reason for any Charlotte, probably any Maeve. Bernard achieved his mission, so he's out of here. So would you want a season five focused around, let's say, Frankie, her spouse, fighting the crazy humans from the cities and also taking on any remaining hosts? And if there are going to be any remaining hosts, like I've been saying earlier, I know you're probably rolling your eyes now, but I think Clementine should be the lead. If we're going to have, because you want to have somebody from the previous season still as an antagonist. You want to have a completely new cast. So I feel like somehow resurrecting her in that role would be perfect, because she has the perfect demeanor for somebody ruling over these outlaw hosts trying to take over these outlier communities. So that is episode 8. I'm very interested to know what you guys think. Did it hit? Were you disappointed? Did they answer all of your questions? You know, I also would not be surprised if we don't get a season 5. This is a good kind of closure to the storyline, especially when you're talking about looping everything again. I think if you saw Twin Peaks season 3, they talked about that too, as far as everything being on a loop and replaying season 1 all the way through again. It kind of feels like the same thing here, just kind of showing that that struggle between survival, good and evil will never end, so to speak. It's always going to be kind of a loop with humanity and now with the host. So let me know if you even would want a season 5. Do you feel like you've gotten all the closure that you need and there's no need for any spin-offs or anything? But that is episode 8, K Será, Será. I want to hear your feedback. Let me know what other TV shows you'd like me to start reviewing. I'm definitely going to be jumping on, for Game of Thrones fans, House of the Dragon when that starts on August 28th, 21st. That's going to be my next show. But any other shows that you feel like you would love me to start reviewing, please let me know. All right. Thanks for sticking with me on this journey through Westworld season 4, and I will see you on the next video.